All right, here it is. I'm dipping my toes back in the interview waters and with none other than somebody you guys are quite familiar with at this point, Julian Gressel of Vancouver, well, now newly, well, semi-newly, of Vancouver Whitecaps. You guys all know him from Atlanta days, DC days. We've talked about so many different things. You've been our Bundesliga expert. There's been so many different Julian Gressels we've talked to over the years. It's
Yep.
just number one. It's great to have you back. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for allowing me back in and happy to even be featured on the pod even in 2023, you know?
Hey, listen, you're always welcome, as I think I've said before. So listen, you got a lot of congratulations in order coming here. So you're a recently minted American citizen, even though you're not living in the U.S. anymore. I think you actually were a father last time you were on, so there's that too. You're so not just American, but you're playing for the national team right now. You're at January camp. You're knee deep in it. So congratulations for all that. How does this feel like? I don't know, like a whirlwind over the last 12 months, or has it just sort of been, a steady progression?
Well, thank you. First of all, it was a couple months were really tough, like a definite whirlwind, and then it kind of started to settle in a bit, and that was right around the trade, right? I mean, last year in July, and that was where it kind of started to get a little bit crazy for a hot second, but um, and now we're kind of settling back in, and this is just right here, right now is a very very welcome bonus and something really cool, which doesn't really add much stress because I would be in preseason anyway. So it's something that is just a really really cool opportunity.
Nice, nice. Well, we're gonna get into the camp. I got some questions for you about how it's going and everything like that, and the experience of getting the call, which I've dreamed about for many years. We'll get to that in a second. So since last we talked, you were traded from DC to Vancouver. Vancouver is they've had sort of a tough run over the years, but you guys were actually not so bad last season. What was the biggest difference for you? Moving from DC to Vancouver from a soccer perspective.
It was just a whole different system and a whole new way of doing things. It was very obviously we were struggling in DC quite a bit. Had a new coach, then a new coach again. It was, and then 1 week into Wayne Rooney being there, I was being traded, and um, it was yeah, it was a lot in that moment. But I was also kind of it was a breath of fresh air almost for me to kind of get into a new organization or a different organization that was trying to do the right things, and I was really surprised in a way by how Vancouver was yeah, trying to change and trying to become a better organization than MLS. And being all the way on the East Coast, you don't really see that, especially up in Vancouver. It's like it's almost a little bit of a forgotten franchise, if for a lot of MLS fans. And it certainly opened my eyes to some stuff they were doing that are really good. And um, it was again, like I said, a welcome change in that moment for me in terms of on the pitch, and in terms of I got in there, we won a championship, the Canadian Championship,
Yeah.
which was cool. And then you were right back in the mix in terms of playoffs, which obviously didn't look so great in DC. And there we had something to play for until the very end, and that was obviously something that I got behind immediately.
Yeah, well, you guys, what, ninth, I think, and so you're like 3 or 4 points off the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I
So,
think if we had won the last game of the season, we would have been in the playoffs.
oh
So it
wow,
was really came down to the last game, but it was in Minnesota. But yeah, it was like I said, it was just something, every week mattered. And in DC, it was like, yeah, you're trying to get out of the rut you were in. And um, you know, obviously with Wayne, it kind of started changing there, and I wasn't part of the plans, and so be it.
yep. Okay. Now Vancouver off the field. What's it been like? All I think of is like just beautiful, seascapes and landscapes and mountains. Have you become like an outdoorsy person since moving out there?
I've always been an outdoorsy person.
Okay.
So it's kind of been, it's really been, I've been there a couple times before, obviously just on like a couple days away trips. So I hadn't really gotten to know the city in that sense. I knew it was a beautiful place and everything, and we got there in the summer and it was incredible. The weather was amazing. Like you said, I think you're standing at the beach, you're looking up in the mountains, you see the glaciers, an hour and a half away. Like you can do so much outdoors there and spend so much quality time out in the sun and everything when the sun's shining. But luckily, in the summer we were able to spend a ton of time outside and really get to know the city, and my wife loved that. She was very surprised about the city as well, and it was better than we had initially thought. I'm not going to lie, obviously there were a lot of challenges in terms of moving to a different country and getting a new bank account, trying to figure out your phone. And I've talked about this on length on the soccer podcast, and I'm kind of repeating myself again here, but it's like we have a 2-year-old as well, obviously, and trying to find daycares, which is extremely difficult in Vancouver, for example. There's like year-long wait lists for all these daycares and
Jeez.
stuff. So it's different challenges that we were facing that weren't so easy, but overall it was definitely a really good experience. And we're now in the process of obviously moving there more fully. Before it was just like, okay, finish the season, we're in an Airbnb, finish the season, and then we went back to the home that we had in Virginia for the off season, and now we're moving out of that home into a home in Vancouver. And it's was definitely a good introduction to the city to really get to know kind of where we want to live and all that type of stuff too.
So now you got German roots. You're an American citizen, and you're
That's
living
right.
in Canada. Do you feel which one? I asked you this before, but this was before you had like a third leg to the stool. Which one do you feel like more American now? Now that you got your citizenship, you're at U.S. men's national team camp. Like, where's your sort of heart at this point?
Uh, Honestly, I've always felt American throughout the last few years. That citizenship was just kind of, the diplomatic thing you had to go through and
Yeah,
do to make it official. I've been in the US now 9.5 years, and it's really, you know, yeah, become my home, and it's a country I am now, represent with great honor on the field in a couple of days, and really excited about that. But again, it hasn't really changed too much of my mindset because I've had that connection ever since I, obviously found my now wife, and my bought a house here, and I've obviously, all my roots are in the US. And um from my family side, obviously, my family is still in Germany, my mom, my brothers,
yeah.
my all that type of stuff. So it's obviously, but for me, my home has been the US, and that's really been, now that I'm an American citizen, it doesn't really change that, or doesn't really change anything in that sense. So it was, the change to Canada got me nervous for a second because of the citizenship, where I was
Yeah,
like, oh, can I
yeah.
still get it? And what is the kind of process here? But
There were
thankfully,
no extra wrinkles or hurdles because of that.
there was just a little bit of one in terms of, I had to push back the interview, so it just took a little bit longer. So I had an interview scheduled, I think, for August, where I could have gotten my citizenship then, which ultimately, yeah, then I had to push back because I couldn't leave Vancouver to go to the interview in Virginia, where all my filing was done. So I had to push that back until November or late October, and then I got my citizenship in November. So it kind of delayed the whole process a bit, but I think by that time the World Cup was a little bit out of the picture anyway. So
I was going to
it
say that
would have been
you
really,
sort of dashed
yeah,
your hopes of playing in the World
yeah,
Cup.
it would have been really tough to kind of go in there anyway. So it was just, it was okay in that sense for me. And we're yeah, and then finally I got that, like I said, the diplomatic part done over the line, and got my US passport, and now yeah, we're an American and German citizen living in Canada.
Right, you got your fingers in a lot of pots. No, it's awesome. Congrats. I've when we first started talking about you playing for the national team, it seemed like there were so many hurdles to go through and everything. This was years ago, right? Like you've been on
Yeah,
the podcast however many times over, like, 4 or 5 years now.
yeah,
It's so cool. I'm like so happy for you. Like I'm not like my black heart is pretty black, and I don't really sort of show emotions about much.
yeah.
Tottenham has
Thank
really
you,
done that to me, but I was so happy when I saw that.
thank
Really
you, thank you.
cool. So tell us about we'll talk about you'll probably come back on and tell us about the Whitecap season, MLS, and all that stuff. Let's move to US men's national team, right?
Yeah,
So
perfect.
this is I mean, obviously you already said it's a big honor. I'm just happy for you. But talk to me about, the so you got citizenship. What was did you had you been in touch? Because listen, the USSF, it's in a little bit of disarray at the moment. That's probably maybe being mean, but whatever. There's a lot of change happening, right, with the
Yep.
U.S. system right now. What was your communications with them over the last few months, and sort of when did you know that this was actually going to come to fruition?
Well, I didn't know until I think early January. So when we had gone to preseason, like I don't know the exact day, but um, so when I got the citizenship, obviously the World Cup was happening, so we kind of let that happen and let that kind of be done with. And then my agent reached out to U.S. Soccer just to let them know that I had completed the process and that I have my passport and I'm fully U.S. men's national team eligible. I am an American citizen. And there was just like, okay, yeah, thanks for the info kind of a thing, without any indication, for the January camp. And I obviously knew that this camp was happening. It was, like you said, it's been a or a month of a bit of a lot of things happening within
Yeah,
US soccer.
yeah,
So I wasn't sure kind of what the plan was for these games, right? Is it going to be, a very young squad or kind of a mix, which it is, and who was going to be the coach, all that type of thing. So um yeah, I didn't know. And then, when I got back to Vancouver, I got an email as it came closer. I got an email that I was on the preliminary roster, and then yeah, my agent was like, "Great, like I still don't know more."
right. Good
Um,
start.
so then I think Anthony Hudson called me when we were on the way to Spain for our first preseason trip with Vancouver, and he just messaged me. He's like, "Hey, you got a quick second?" We were in the airport, and yeah, he called me and asked me basically, or told me basically what the plan was for this January camp, and then ultimately asked me if I wanted to be part of it and would like to kind of come in. And that, yeah, they've been kind of watching me, and obviously wasn't allowed before because I wasn't an American citizen, but
Right.
now I am, and they would like to bring me in and just get to know me, all that type of stuff. So it was a great conversation that we initially had. And um, obviously I happily accepted, and kind of was excited, and still am excited about this, that I got invited to a January camp, and now be here and try and represent the country the best I can.
Nice. So the call, I was going to ask you who actually gave you the call, because
Yeah,
disarray might be a little harsh. Like just a lot of upheaval, right? A lot of changes, a lot of uncertainty around the program right now. So it's sort of like
yeah.
some, who knows? But Anthony Hudson. So I got a question for you about him. I know that he was a coach Colorado. I think a lot of people don't really know much about him. Obviously you've only been around him, so much at this point. But what's he like at this point?
I mean, his from what I've gotten to know him as, is a very open and honest guy that is trying to obviously bridge the gap now in terms of continuing what they've built over the last 4 years, and kind of continuing of what U.S. soccer has done in the World Cup, and kind of trying to kind of, yeah, set the standard for a lot of young guys and a lot of new guys like myself to really show them what it's all about, what the last years were about, what the World Cup was about, and how the standard and how the viewing of American soccer, I think, has changed in the whole world, and how that the goal is to kind of carry that and take the extra step for the next 3.5 years, right? And this January camp being a great opportunity for all of us, new guys to come in and try and leave their mark and try and impress to make selections in the future for whoever the coach is more difficult. And obviously a lot of young guys on the team now that in 3.5 years might play a really big role in the World Cup. So just a great opportunity, and he's really trying to just yeah, put us, into a kind of a system that they had played at the World Cup and the style that they played at the World Cup for these two games, and ultimately try and be successful in those two games, and at the same time showcase ourselves of kind of who we are and what we could bring, to the national team in that sense.
For sure. And so, yeah, Anthony Hudson's in a tough spot, right? With just sort of we don't know what the system, what things are going to be like going forward, coming off of a World Cup that a lot of people would argue was a success, but then there's people who anything short of winning the World Cup is worthy of criticism. So is Anthony Hudson, is he sort of taking what Berhalter did and even sort of tactically and just kind of keeping the things going at this point?
Well, I obviously didn't know, right, how it was exactly under Greg Berhalter and kind of what it was like. But yeah, I think in terms of a style and in terms of system, in terms of on the field stuff, there's simply not enough time to change
Yeah.
things, right? Like you have guys in there that obviously went in this group now that obviously went to the World Cup, and that have the experience playing this certain way. And that's why I don't think there's time to really change anything. I think you had a clear identity and a clear way of playing that was successful. In my opinion, I don't think you got played off the table in the World Cup really in any game. So it was a successful recipe that, now you try and show some young guys what they can do in that system and what they bring to the table, for these next two games. And then you have to kind of just, obviously there's, you have to kind of see what the future holds in that sense. But, for these two games, I don't think there'll be too much change. From what the process was like before and from what stylistically we want to look like on the field, just because you have guys in the beginning of preseason, and obviously within MLS some guys are playing in different different stages in their club, and it's so difficult to really get everybody buying into this new way of playing, which isn't happening. So I think he's done a really good job of trying to get everybody on the same page and really explaining principles to us, at the same time as trying to have guys feel like they could express themselves and be themselves in a way, and show and telling us that we're good players and that's why we're there. So it's definitely been a really good mix, and certainly trying to obviously continue to be as ready as we possibly can for first Serbia and then Colombia.
So you mentioned it's kind of a mix of young guys, and some experienced guys, like including Aaron Long was at the World Cup, Kellen Acosta, Sean Johnson, Paul Arriola was like right on the cusp of making it. Who at this point is the sort of de facto voice among the players that everybody kind of listens to?
Those guys that you mentioned, I think Walker Zimmerman is probably number one.
Yeah,
A
how
guy
did I
that
forget
played.
Walker? He's a Sam fan too, so
Yeah, a
brain
guy
doesn't
that
work
that
sometimes.
even played a lot of minutes in the World Cup, and was on the field regularly. So, him. You got Sean Johnson, like you said, and Aaron Long and Kellen Acosta. Those guys that have been at the with the national team for the past years quite a lot, and have been with obviously Greg Berhalter quite a bit, and Anthony Hudson as an assistant, and kind of just know what the culture is like, know what they've built over the past years, and kind of what they wanted to look like, why and they kind of relay that message of why they think they've been successful, and kind of set the standard in a sense in terms of a cultural aspect. So those guys have definitely been here to kind of help us and answer questions, talk us through certain situational things on the field as well as off the field. It's a lot to kind of take in a short amount of time. So they've been super helpful so far, and I'm excited to first obviously get to know them a bit more as my teammates, because I've only played against them.
Yeah.
not with Paul and Brandon. Those are the only two guys, right? Brandon Vasquez,
Yep.
that I've kind of played with together. But everybody else is really really nice to kind of get to know them more and be yeah, on the same team as them.
So now the young guys, the guys that you didn't really know, much about, if at all, there's got guys coming from, South America and stuff that you really wouldn't really have known anything of the guys. So at practice, who has surprised you perhaps the most? I mean, like, this is not a knock on anybody else. It's just like, wow, okay, this guy's got a little something.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult for me to say because we really haven't practiced a ton together, all of us. Today was probably the only session that we really had where everybody was like putting on boots and playing,
Yeah.
because everybody kind of got in different times because of their different schedules doing preseason and everything, with the different teams. So it's really going to come down to the game. So I'm sorry to disappoint, but I can't really, say. Obviously, like you said, I think there's some exciting young dual nationals that have been called in that want to now step into the US national team and kind of come in and leave their mark. And um, they chose the US in a sense and want to kind of show well to be part of the plans for long term. So it's obviously good to have young hungry guys like that. And now you have also guys that have been part of youth national teams come in to see how it is at the senior level. And it's just a kind of a good camp to really have a mix, like I said, of guys that have been part of the process over the last few years and guys that might be part of the process over the next few years. Kind of a great introduction in that sense. And on the field quality, I think we all have on the field quality because again, I don't think we would be here
Yeah.
if we didn't, and everybody has something to bring to the table in that sense. So it'll be exciting to see in the games kind of what it all looks like coming together.
Sure. Now, last question before we get to rapid fire, and there's just gonna be some random questions. You know how it works.
Yeah.
Give us a quick scouting report for Serbia and Colombia. What do you know about them at this point?
I haven't really talked too much about Colombia. I think that'll obviously happen after the Serbia game's over. In terms of Serbia, I think they've played a certain style, throughout the last few years. You could see that at the World Cup, with their five-man back line and almost yeah, kind of let you kind of dictate play a little bit. So we're hoping to obviously exploit that and see kind of if they play that way, yeah, then we'll be prepared. If not, then we'll kind of have to adjust obviously and show how we can do that. But it's obviously a great opportunity for a lot of those guys as well. I have a teammate at Vancouver at the Whitecaps, Ranko Veselinovic, who plays for them, who got called in. He'll have his, I think, second or third cap for them. So, and he said there's a lot of young guys on the squad as well, similar to us, that haven't had many caps, many
Right.
call ups, that kind of just missed out on the World Cup. So it'll be a great opportunity for them as well to show what they can do and to show kind of that they can be part of the national team as well. So you never 100% know kind of what you'll get, but they certainly have their principles and style in terms of, like I said, with how they trying to defend, how they're trying to attack, and hopefully we can kind of exploit that and yeah, then ultimately get a win. I think we're playing at home. We're like I said, the standard has changed to be one of the best teams in the world, and for that, even friendly games, there's not really any friendly games. You want to win these games, and you want to show well for the country and show that we're progressing, even though there's a lot of question marks around what the future looks like.
Yep. Yep. I mean, listen, we got a lot of games against the Bermudas of the world and all that sort of thing. So when you get a Serbia and a Colombia, it's time to
Yeah, it's
show
exciting
what
for
we
sure.
got. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, rapid fire. So quick questions for you here. Have you done any sort of initiations so far?
Nope, nothing.
Nothing. You guys have gotten
No,
off the
I
hook,
don't know
huh?
if I don't know if it's gonna happen. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Oh man, I gotta get a send Aaron Long like a DM or something. Make sure
I
that something
mean, what,
happens.
there's like 13 guys, so it would be
I
just a
know it's
really
it's
long
more
night.
like
Yeah.
more initiations than it would be like initiators. So
Yeah. That's
okay,
right.
all right, you're free so far. What do you think about being listed as a defender on the U.S. men's national team like announcement, the roster announcement?
Listen, I don't know. There's so many discussions of what I should be listed at, probably daily by so many people. No, I think that's probably where I'm going to play as a right back in this system. I think that's just the plan they have for me and the way they see me fitting in right now, and that's okay. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to take that role. I think again, I have certain qualities that kind of fits that. I have certain things that obviously I need to be very aware of, and I'm trying to do that. And obviously also get better as a player. Just because I'm here doesn't mean that I'm at the top here. No, I want to keep getting better and keep improving. And yeah, it's just part of it, and that's kind of the role they see for me, and that's great. And I'll take it as it comes.
Okay. Yeah, it could be worse. I always think of you as a midfielder, but that's
Yeah.
just me.
All right.
Lastly, and you knew I had to ask you this, but you're a big Bundesliga guy, right? I mean, you always follow what's going on over there. You are our expert, at least 1, maybe 2 years. So I'm sure you know a little bit. You maybe were watching it live when Dortmund was playing Augsburg this weekend, and Gio Reyna, who's been in the news for many reasons lately, hit an absolute banger. That was nice. That was cool. That was great.
Great
What
goal.
got
Yeah.
people? Yeah, I mean, the goal was amazing. The celebration, caught a lot of people's eye. Did you have? Were there any conversations had at camp about it? What's sort of your thoughts here?
The way I found out about it was at breakfast, where Kellen Acosta showed me a video uh, of the goal and then his celebration.
Yeah.
And honestly, like it was, I don't know. I don't know Gio. I don't know. I don't know what the situation was like. I don't know what it was like during the World Cup. I haven't really had those conversations with guys yet of what it was like, so I can't really say anything
Mm-hmm.
in terms of because I don't know anything. But again, like you said, I think he's been mentioned obviously a lot in the media, and there's been a lot of talk, and yeah, I think it's a great way for him to kind of shift the mindset or shift the narrative almost if he just does well and does those things on the field, and that's great if he can continue to do that and obviously help Dortmund and then help the US national team because he is a very talented and very, very good player as he showed in that moment, right? So it's yeah, I think he'll be a part of the national team, going forward. I think the talent is certainly there. And again, it's whatever is happening off the field or outside of maybe even his control is something that is for other people to figure out. And all we or even I or he can do is take care of kind of what we do on the field, right? So he did that in that moment, and I'm sure he'll do it again eventually.
That's right. Diplomatic as always. Well
I mean,
done.
it's honest. It's honest too. There's nothing else I know that I could even tell. So I'm sorry to disappoint.
No, I appreciate it. Listen, it got people talking. It got people talking, and
Yeah.
I'm not
And
surprised
there
it
were
got.
conversations here too. Yeah, it
Yeah,
got people talking here as well for
yeah.
sure. I
I
mean,
mean, it
first
was a
it's a
hell of
great
a
goal,
goal.
so you have to
Right,
talk about the goal
exactly.
too. Yeah.
Exactly. Listen, that's all I got for you. I could keep asking you questions, but we'll have you back on. Hopefully, you'll join us again. Be willing to. But thank you, Julian. Number one, thank you, and number two, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations. I'm so
Thank you.
happy for you. It's great to see you at camp, and hopefully, we'll see you out on the field on Wednesday and Saturday.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Good to be on.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening.